Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Health Straight Talk. It's Thursday, February 22nd, and we actually have a very special guest, Mr. Brad Pilon. It looks like Brad just joined, so I'm going to click Brad.
Okay.
Let's see if I can add it. Go live with Brad. Go live with Brad. We're waiting for Brad. Perfect. It says it's connecting. Beautiful. Hey, Brad. Yeah.
There
Hey.
you go. What's
Awesome.
going on, brother?
Oh, thanks for being so patient.
Hey, no worries. I was feeling like, it was like I'm the old guy who can't work Facebook. What's up, Grace? So it makes me feel good. At least I still know how to use some technology here.
Good. I love that you had to download Facebook onto your phone.
Yeah, you know what? I took it off because
Distractions?
It was maybe not the best thing for my sleep patterns, right? Because you wake up and do one of those weird things to your chest, and I was like, why am I always on this? So I took it off, and then I kept it off. I have Messenger, but no Facebook.
Cool. Well, I think that's great for productivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Facebook must know that you didn't have it on your phone and that I haven't really been using Facebook a lot.
Yeah.
That it didn't like us today at all.
Well, it probably used the whole secret, like, listening in our conversation thing they do. Supposedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, these guys, we're messing them up today. We're not letting them.
Wow. Goodness. And don't joke about that because I know all that Google Home stuff and Alexa, that's serious stuff.
Oh, yeah, dude, I have tons of stories about, like, what we were in discussion about. I was talking to my wife about something.
Yeah.
Then I opened up my computer to look something else up. I need to order, like red Sharpies because I can't find it anywhere. So I go to order them off Amazon. I think we're talking about, like, our neighbor's Audi, and all the ads were for Audi, like, all over. I was like, I don't remember looking at anything to do with Audi, so scary.
All the wild stuff that's out there.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you working on? Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody and let them know who you are?
Yeah. Okay. So what's going on, everybody? My name is Brad Pilon. I'm an author up in Canada around 10, 11 years ago, which makes me sound really old. So I was doing my grad work. So let's just imagine I'm like Doogie Howser and was doing it at 15. Okay. And my grad work ended up sort of steering in the direction of the metabolic effects of fasting. And I found it so interesting that I decided to take that grad work and turn it into a book. Yeah. And then I'm such a large control freak that I turned that book into a self-published book so that I could control everything in it. And right place, right time, that was one of the very first books on intermittent fasting that kind of hit the mainstream internet, if that's a thing, back in 2007. Yeah. And I've been living as a one-hit wonder ever since. So that's my quick story.
That's amazing. So I think, I probably started following you on Twitter probably when I was in chiropractic school, like 09, 10.
Yeah, I would have been there.
Yeah, see, you know who I think I found you through Craig Ballantyne.
Ah, okay, Craig's a good man. Actually, I just had with Craig last night in Toronto, so.
Neat. Very neat. So that was probably the first time I heard about intermittent fasting as well, and I talk about it usually as a strategy when we do our Eat Well workshop. And I'll bring it up briefly, but maybe you can go into some more details today and how you've had success with it. And you said, when I spoke to you on the phone, you said you've been doing it for about 10 to 12 years yourself.
Yeah, and even so, the book was published late 06, so let's say November, which means I was doing my grad work in 06, 05, and like every good grad student, you experiment on yourself. So I probably started fasting late 2005, early 2006, and kind of, I played around with a longer fast, like 72 hours, realized that was not my style. Yeah. Played around with some shorter fasts, doing them more frequently, and realized it was too, not time-consuming, but too structured for my lifestyle. Settled in on the Eat Stop Eat, a 24-hour fast once or twice a week, and been doing it ever since.
Wow. So do you have your structured days? What days are those?
So typically, it's depending on if anything comes up, but let's just assume no weird things come up. It's Sunday, Monday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, typically, unless someone calls me up and wants me to go out for dinner with a bunch of people, and then I just skip it. So I keep it flexible. Like I missed last night because today's Thursday, right? Yeah. But I was going to pass last night. Craig called up. He's like, want to hit dinner? I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to pass up a dinner. Yeah. So then I'll probably end up fasting tonight until tomorrow. Maybe do like a 2 to 2 or a 3 p.m. to 3 p.m. type fast. So they're always flexible. Sunday, Monday's a pretty structured one because not much goes on Sunday night in my life. Yep. And then the second one in the week, if it happens, it's usually towards the end of the week, but never really like a planted time.
Wow. So do you work out as well?
Yep, 3 times a week. Actually, here, back. Let me.
Your own fitness studio.
Back there. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
that's the basement of the house. So I'm not the best thing about working out at home, right? I'm always the most jacked, best looking guy in the gym. So it's good for my
That's so true. No, I got a garage gym as well where I do probably 80-90% of my training too. So I can totally appreciate that.
Yeah, you just get it done when you have to get it done. You don't have to change out your pajamas or whatever you're in. You just go for it. So it's a great feeling. Yeah. And that's like typically that's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But then it allows for, it might be Monday, Wednesday, Saturday if I'm still feeling beaten up or something like that. So it's 3 days a week, typically every other day, but kind of flexible on when.
Neat. And you usually program that in, like, do you usually have a feast and then go train?
Nah, it's really the way I approach fasting is independent of sort of all the other factors in my life. So the fast happens when it happens and nothing else changes. I typically don't train when I'm fasted only because my fasts usually end around noon or 1. I'm an afternoon workout kind of guy, so when I train around 2 or 3. But when I'm done a fast, whatever I would normally eat at that time is what I eat. So there's no sort of celebratory meal at the end of the fast or anything like that. It's just sort of the fast ends, I have whatever I'm normally going to have, and then I go into my training.
Neat. And so do you program your other aspects of your diet any differently? Like, are you trying to eat more fat, more proteins? What do you
No, you know what? I mean, so I'm been in this business forever, right? So I'm 40 now, right from working in health food stores when I was young to then doing my undergrad in nutrition at Guelph University up here in Canada. Then I went and worked out in the supplement industry for 6-7 years and back to school. So I've kind of run the gamut. And what I found is a lot of the complexity and minutia around diet really doesn't make a difference for me in sort of in my current lifestyle. I think that many of the mistakes you make with diet can usually be negated by just being consistent with your training. So my diet is probably 100-ish grams. If you average out my protein intake during the course of a week, it probably comes out to around 100 grams a day.
Right.
And then everything else just falls into place to the amount of food that I can eat without gaining weight. And it's just sort of always at that level. And then I use the fasting to kind of balance when, maybe I was lying to myself and 3 donuts didn't help keep me where I'm supposed to be. The fasting is what kind of keeps me even. So using weight as an example, because it's the easiest one to do. Let's say I'm typically around 170, 175 pounds. Well, I know if I start seeing that creep up to, let's say, 177, then I'm like, okay, I've got to make sure I am still fasting and I'm on point, and then I will reduce the amount of food I'm eating until I'm kind of back into the range I like. So it really is sort of a feedback-based system for me, right? I just sort of manipulate things depending on my weight and my measurements, and that's it.
Awesome. So you basically objectively test and give yourself feedback.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main ones are circumferences. So I measure my waist and my shoulder circumferences. Yeah. And they're a really good indication for me of overall muscle mass and fat mass. And then so I just adjust accordingly. So on a 5'10" male like myself, every inch you gain around your waist is about the equivalent of 5 pounds of overall body fat, right? So I know if my waist is going up in lockstep with my weight, then probably bad things are happening, right? So if those two are going up at the same time, it's probably around Thanksgiving or Christmas, and I've made some mistakes. But on the other hand, if my weight is, let's say it's going up, my waist is staying the same, my shoulder circumference, so around, lower it, around sort of the base, meaty part, if that's going up, then maybe some good things are happening in the gym, right? So I just use those combinations of feedback to kind of guide me on what I'm doing.
Neat. Really neat. So what would you, for someone who's just hearing about you now, what would you, what would be one easy step for someone to take for fasting? Would you recommend it for 12 hours, not 24 hours? What would you recommend?
I think most people can do 12. I think 12 is basically an extended, okay, well, let's reverse. Yeah. So with Eat Stop Eating, with any form of fasting, I like the idea of extending the sleep fast or your nighttime fast, right? So the benefit of that is most everybody fasts when they sleep. That if you don't, you've got some special skills going on. But you're already fasting, right? And so what you're being asked to do is kind of stop eating a bit before you go to bed and wait after you've woken up before you start eating again. So you're just stretching that fasting period out. if you do that right, you'll always be sleeping through the worst part of the fast. Because the fast does have some points where it just feels a bit monotonous, right?
Yeah.
So you want to sleep during those times. So since most of us fast, let's just say we're getting a good night's sleep for 8 or 9 hours almost every day of the week in that cycle, the best place to start there is just trying to extend that sleep fast by either not eating right before bed, or when you get up, have your coffee, but wait an hour or two before you eat again, and just see how that feels. And then you're going to start stretching that out. Now, I like the idea of ripping the Band-Aid off quickly, jumping into the cold water, that sort of thing. So I think you just go for a 24. Okay. The reason I recommend that is a lot of how we eat is habitual, right? So you live in modern North America. Chances are you've never really been like starving hungry. You've wanted food, and you've had cravings. But that sort of hunger is reserved for people who just actually can't get food.
Right.
So the benefit of 24-hour fast is you really start to learn your rhythms of why you want food when you want it. Right? And so it might be because whenever you go to work and you pass that one Starbucks that you always stop in, you're going to want to stop. And hypothetically, you're super late for work and you decide to be a really good employee and you don't stop, you're going to feel like something's been taken from you, right? Like you were supposed to have that meal and now you're hungry because you didn't get your Frappuccino or whatever. So when you're fasting, you learn all those cues throughout the day. And it really helps because it really makes you aware of the fact that a lot of why you eat is just based on your environment, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I hang out with Matt, we go for beers kind of thing. So it just becomes, that's the habit. So jumping right into a 24-hour fast is, if you can do it, it's really good because once you complete the fast, it's positive reinforcement that you're able to fast. You have that kind of control. But it's also a learning environment where you realize, man, at around 11 a.m., right before that board meeting, I was just craving a donut, even though I was fasting. But then I realized I wasn't actually hungry. It's just that we always have donuts at that meeting. And so it really helps you kind of tune into why you eat.
So do you recommend people write down their cues as they go through the first day?
Write them down, or at least be aware of them. Writing down is the best option because writing just sort of reinforces that thought process. Instead of when you think about it, you just kind of lose it, right?
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised. I mean, the amount of times that I've realized that I eat out of habit or just out of more of a craving. You've gotten into the newest donut shop just opened in Hamilton, right? It's fantastic. And that's all I can think about right now. But it's not because I'm hungry. Yeah. Right? In no way am I hungry right now. I'm not fasting. I had a breakfast maybe an hour ago.
Right.
So there's no possible way I'm hungry. What I am is really wanting a donut. When you're fasting, you realize that difference. And it really helps out for a lot of people as, the fasting's a tool. You still have to eat. And when you're eating, you still have to do so responsibly. And fasting really helps you kind of figure out what that means.
Amazing. Yeah. So I'm guessing if your book, do you talk a little bit about, energy levels is one, but also like centurions, like people who live to 100 and beyond, like have good control of their blood sugar. Like,
when you look at the centurion data and the not just the blue zones, but the ones that are actually spread out throughout the world. You have like Barbados, for instance, is a super high amount of centurions given their population. Small island in the Caribbean. Lots of people live into a ripe old age. Yeah. They say it's the rum. I'm not sure if they're right. The rum. But when you look at it, you see just a very interesting and complex set of outcomes. It has to do with blood sugar, but not only that, you look at stress, quality of life, time spent outdoors, etc. Yeah. So I like to look at the entire data set, right? Whether it's Aubrey de Grey's work on super centurions, that sort of thing. And you realize that a large part of it is stress, like mental as physical. And so I actually do think that the simplest approach to eating healthy, the one that doesn't overly complicate it, the one that doesn't make you obsessive compulsive about your food, may in fact be the one that leads to a longer, more fulfilling life. So that's sort of my view with fasting. If it's the simplest approach to maintaining a lower body weight, to maintaining better markers of inflammation and insulin sensitivity, etc. But without the complication, with the stress that you're doing something wrong, it could actually lead to an improved and longer quality of life.
Right. That's amazing. I always remember when when they look at, I'm sure you remember the mice studies and whatnot when they fed them 60% of a typical caloric intake and just stretched it out over time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think it's just, there's something to be said about it. If of all the things we have to worry about in the world today, if you can minimize some of them, it's better for you. So I like to think of traditional dieting, for some people, not all, but for traditional dieting, is kind of a slow, inevitable march to failure, right? They're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be awesome. It's my New Year's resolution. I'm going to be in a bikini by the summer. And February rolls around and they mess up, right? Because it was their sister's niece's wedding or something. Sister's niece's. It was something. I guess so you go to the wedding, you're pretty good, and then the dessert cart comes out. It's 11:30 at night. You just finished doing the macarena, so you crushed the dessert. The next day you wake up and you're like, I messed up. Like, I failed. This is horrible. So what typically happens is then you spend the next couple of days eating because you're just mad you messed up, and then you recommit. But when you recommit to be stricter, and you're going to be better, and you're going to cut out all complex carbs, and you're going to be better. It's going to be more. I'm going to get an Excel spreadsheet and track stuff. And so you get harder on yourself.
Yeah.
But then eventually you fail again because you just can't diet forever in those kind of strictest of terms, because if you're ignoring the flexibility and nuances of life. Every time that happens, it's a bit of a negative reinforcement saying, like, Matt, you can't do this. Like, you've tried and you can't do it, right? You failed before, you failed again before. This isn't happening for you. And then you get in that vicious cycle of just wanting to lose weight, but not actually taking any steps towards it. But because you want to desperately, you actually feel like you're doing the work. And it's this giant stress, right? So I like the idea of the occasional, the occasional intermittent fast is the opposite of that, where if you complete your first fast, and instead of just fasting until you can't possibly fast anymore, you say to yourself, 16 or 18, 20, 24 hours is what I was going to do. That time is up. I am done. But you did it, right? You successfully.
Check mark of success.
It's over, right?
Yeah.
Which means you can do it again, probably. Let's say you do it a second time, and that works great. You're like, I can do this. Say you have a third one, and it's a struggle, right? Because fasting's like life. There's sometimes you're going to fast, you're not going to feel well, you're going to have a headache, someone's bothering you, the kids are being crazy. It was a struggle, but you made it.
Yeah.
It's just this constant positive reinforcement. Now, you're not going to make every fast. Like, even I've had, 8-9 hours into a fast, which is barely into a fast, and me going like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. This is horrible, right? And I'll put it off a day or two.
Yeah.
But I have the years of experience behind me knowing that was a decision, not a failure kind of thing. So I think it just leads for a more positive approach to dieting, just by clumping diets into little segments. You get it done. You go on with your life. Eat responsibly in between. Don't eat it after Halloween. Yeah. But it just allows for a much different approach. Some people like the old approach. Some people are very structured and need that, no, I need to spreadsheet out everything I eat every day. And that's just who they are. But if other people are like me and they need the flexibility and they need to be able to roll with the nuances of life, it's a very interesting way to accomplish a calorie deficit, accomplish some sort of diet without having to do it every day.
I like it. It breaks down into micro chunks, manageable.
Exactly.
And positive reinforcement.
Yeah. There's so many people try to diet, and we're not talking about, fitness competitors who've done this before and know that they can get in shape. But the person who's never done this before, who tries to diet, and then it just doesn't work. Let's say they don't lose the amount of weight, even if they're doing well. Let's say they don't lose the amount of weight they expected, right? Because most people expect, after a week of dieting, they should be down 15 pounds kind of thing, right? Let's say they're only down.
Of course.
Something you and I would, even though you and I would be like, you did amazing. They're like, no, I didn't. I don't look like a model. It's been a week in. I've only lost 3 pounds. I suck, right? Yeah. And so it's a very interesting situation. And the truth of the matter is that the day-to-day cost of weight loss is rarely worth the benefit, the immediate benefit people see. So a day of dieting can be fairly difficult. Yeah. And you will see no difference in a day. In fact, it's almost guaranteed you'll weigh more at the end of that day than you did at the beginning, even though you're working hard and dieting. And if people only measure their weight, which is what most people do, it's a very weird trade-off, right? You put in a lot of effort. There is a lot of cost, a lot of denial, a lot of self-restraint, self-control to only step on a scale that night and weigh more. And if you don't understand the nuances of body weight, very hard thing to push on someone, right? It's like,
No,
you're going
so
to
you're
work.
upset.
Yeah, it's not a fair trade for the average person,
Okay.
right? So that's kind of the major downfalls of diet, because I'm talking about a day, but it could be the same as a week, because our weights fluctuate. You know, it more so for
Always.
women.
Stresses change.
Yeah,
Change.
you could have a great week of dieting, and great week, because
Of
I
course.
don't know. Yeah, and still weigh the same, a bit less, or only a little bit more, maybe even, at the end of that week. That trade-off sucks, right? So it's improving that trade-off is the key to helping people make
So
it.
I like how you had your more objective measures though, in terms of measuring the shoulders, measuring the waist,
Yeah,
which I think is key because the scale, excuse me, is just your relationship with gravity, right?
exactly.
Yeah. And now,
The scale is also, it's a bit, you have two major components to your body. You have water weight and you have non-water weight, right? Your non-water weight is basically everything that is carbon. Everything, your skin, your bone, your fat, your 98% carbon, something crazy like that, right? That's the non-water weight. That's the stuff. Water is just transiently being held within these sort of carbon-based structures in your body. Tons of water. You're mostly water. And it has a high amount of day-to-day flux, and it can be influenced by, for women, your menstrual cycles, for men and women, the salt intake, the carbohydrate intake. So many things can affect it. Exercise, right?
yeah.
That if you're only going by weight, you're trying to, you care about the non-water weight, but what's mostly being shown in these measurements is your water weight.
You're overcaring about something that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Now, the long-term trend of weight's important, but those day-to-day weights are very difficult to actually categorize and let you know what kind of improvements are actually being made. So I like adding in measurements. And your measurements are still affected by water weight, but not to the same degree, especially when you use measurements and weight. So really simple ones, your waist, right? For men, right around your belly button. For women, just a bit higher at the natural waist. Your shoulder circumference, again, so it would be right about where your armpit crease is.
Okay.
So for women, you generally miss most of the breast tissue, right?
Part of your delt. Yeah.
Yeah. Around your delt, around your chest, around your back, right?
Perfect.
And then maybe your hips at their widest point, and maybe your thighs at some sort of marker. I like doing sort of top of kneecap, 8 inches up. You get a really good indication with those measurements of changes in muscle mass, changes in fat mass.
Yes.
And at least you have just one other marker to play with. So you're looking at your weight, and you're like, wow, my weight's changed. I wonder why. Then you look at your circumferences, and you think, oh, the only ones that have changed are my waist and my hips. Maybe not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you started a new workout program, and something's really going well, and you're like, oh, weird. You know, my thigh measurement and my shoulder measurement have increased.
Yep.
But my waist hasn't really gone up that much. Maybe I'm gaining muscle. Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you get situations where you're like, my weight's up, and literally none of these measurements are different. And you're like, thinking back, I did like eat a ton of like pizza, salty pizza last night. Maybe I'm holding water. Yeah, and water is fairly heavy, right? Like 500 mils of water is
pound.
And this, like, imagine this sort of spread out over your entire body. It's not going to be measured anywhere significantly, right? But you could be up a pound and a half, depending on that kind of measurement. So
we got
just give you that little bit of extra info.
So I love the measurements. Someone here, Lore_nutrition, she's asking us, does it work if after fasting you eat more calories than you're used to per week, for example?
Well, yeah. So if you eat more than you normally would at that time, it's still not going to typically negate, 24 hours of not eating. Most people do eat a bit more after a fast. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
It takes a significant amount of effort in a small amount of time to eat enough to negate a fast. Now, with Eat Stop Eat, you're fasting once or twice a week. So let's just say once. You're fasting for one 24-hour period, which means you have the equivalent of 6 days of eating to completely ruin that fast if you want, right? So there is, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. And to be perfectly honest, very few people can even out-fast a bad diet without getting to the point where you're spending more time fasting than you are eating, which, again, negates the point of just everything, because eating is awesome, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course.
The way I view this one, and it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow, is I like to say we've had our turn. We've all been children, right? We've eaten the candy. We've eaten so much after Halloween that we've puked. Maybe not all of us, but this guy for sure, right? Like we've gone to birthday parties where we've argued and stolen the corner piece of cake has most icing. We got to do that. We're not kids now. There's a certain amount of responsible eating you have to do as an adult, right? Because kids are growing this way. We're growing this way. Yeah, we're not growing in height anymore. I was, someone robbed me of 2 inches and I'm 5'10", and I just got to, live with that.
Yeah.
But so we're not children, and just like we don't get to do all the fun stuff they do, like run around and be crazy, we don't get to eat like kids anymore. So you do have to be responsible in between your fasts. You don't have to be the world's most intelligent nutrition person, right? You literally just have to be like, should I eat this much? Or I can have a donut. Should I have 6? Probably not, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
And that's all it takes. So yes, you can absolutely ruin a fast. You can ruin 2 fasts with the way you eat during the rest of the week. And I can tell you that from experience, right? Like you can still fast and ruin everything. So it doesn't replace responsible eating, but it does make responsible eating a little bit simpler.
Simpler, okay. Everybody likes simpler, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we got another question from planted_Peggy. It says, how do you improve the trade-off? So
okay. So a couple things there. One of the beautiful things about fasting is basically as long as you are breathing, you're losing non-water body weight, right? Like it's just you literally lose fat through your breath, right? The carbon from carbon dioxide was once part of a fatty acid. That's how it leaves your body. So if you're breathing, you're losing non-water body weight. And we breathe a lot, believe it or not. We breathe out a lot of carbon dioxide over the course of a day. In fact, if you do the quick math, you lose about 1/3 to 1/2 pound of non-water body weight every 24 hours.
Okay.
And you lose water weight, which means from a trade-off of cost to effectiveness to feedback, the average person after a 24-hour fast, as long as there's not some weird water fluctuations, is going to step on the scale that next morning and be at least 1 pound or 2 lighter. Right. That's great biofeedback. Now, of that pound or 2, probably 1 pound of that is water weight. Because I'm telling you, only about 1/2 pound to 1/3 pound of that is actual non-water body weight, the real stuff we care about.
Yeah.
But it's still a feedback that the new dieter, the new person trying to lose weight sees sort of that immediate result. And as long as you make sure they understand that it's going to go back up a little bit,
right, and
then at the next fast it'll go down and back up a little bit. So you are sort of losing and gaining, but you're hopefully never gaining it all back. It's a more immediate feedback. It's more immediate results, and it's a more immediate feel. You do feel sort of lighter. It's really weird, but a lot of people,
which is motivating.
Yeah, you haven't experienced an empty stomach in a long time.
Yeah,
right. For a lot of people, that's true, and just that feeling is a lightness that people like. That feeling of not being full all the time. I had a woman describe it as, the pin you use to blow up like a kid's basketball. You got to stick it in. Right. She's like, sometimes I just want to take that and just jab it into my side to let out the pressure. And I'm like, that's graphic, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. So that feeling of not always being full is really good feedback for a lot of people.
Okay, neat. I like that. So 1 to 2 times a week you can get that feedback for yourself.
Yeah.
Laura Nutrition said, love the responsibly eating comment. She appreciated the answering her question. And we have Hall 5508. She says, will you have Brad explain how he finds maintenance caps and then incorporates them into the fast?
Maintenance calories?
Yeah, that's what my guess would be. Like, well, there's 10 or 20 times your body weight per pound, and then work backwards.
There's a ton of calculations, right?
Yeah.
And they're all estimates based on guesstimates, based on predictive equations, right? So they're guesses. So here's the thing: the amount of calories that you can eat without losing weight, you determine by history and your own experimentation. There's no set number, so I can't say for everybody on this right now it's 14 times body weight or 20 or whatever it is, right? So you start somewhere, and as human beings, all roughly the same height, right? So for the 6'8" guy on this, or the 4'8" person, it's a bit different. But for the rest of us, between the heights about 5'4" and let's say 6'4", that range, they got 1 foot range. you're looking at a calorie need of probably somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 a day, not including exercise. It's not actually that big of a range, right? Where most of us aren't that active, right?
No.
So if you have a desk job, and then you drive home, and then you sit on the couch and you work out really, really hard for an hour and a half a day out of the 24 hours of a day, we're not that active. If you have an active job, you already know you're a different human being than the rest of us.
Yeah.
But most of it's 2,000 to 3,000. It's somewhere in there, and then you play with those numbers and you play with that range. You play with the foods you enjoy eating. So let's say you're like me, and you like your baked goods and you like your sweets. They're dense, right? So you don't get to eat as much of those as someone who's all about sort of kale and arugula, right? They get to eat volumes of that stuff. Yeah. So it really comes from the food choices that you typically eat. And for most people in a given week, it's maybe like 20 different foods, right? It's not like you're choosing from thousands of things. And then you try to figure out, of those foods, what can you eat? And if there's certain things you want to eat more of, what's the give and take, right? So if you're like, Brad, I need to have a bowl of ice cream every night before I go to bed. It's either that or nothing. Like I'm having that bowl of ice cream or I'm not even trying. But then we go like, okay, cool. You have that ice cream. We'll figure out something else along the day that maybe you're not as strictly on, right? That you're willing to give up. And you just balance it out. And then it's just working with those measurements and that scale. A lot of people do need the spreadsheet and track it first. And I'm fine with that. But what I encourage you to do is use that as a teaching tool. So the point to where you can almost go by feel, right? And go by experience. Yeah. The thing about going too hard with the equations is that they don't, again, allow for the nuances of life. So the number, the 14.75 times your body weight that worked last summer might not work now for whatever reason. So you've got to be willing to accept that these things are guesstimate estimates that are supposed to be used as a teaching tool and not these hard, strict numbers. And for me, nothing's worse than someone who's like, I ate, whatever the number was, 17 times my body weight and didn't lose weight, therefore I think my metabolism is broken. And I'm sitting there going like, or the number was broken, right? Like, or the equation was wrong, right?
Wasn't right for you,
Yeah, so that's my general thought on that, is you really just go by experience.
I like that. Making it unique to you and tracking your own history and still getting to eat your small bowl of ice cream at night.
Exactly. Yeah, thumbs up on that. Yeah, exactly.
And what about somebody commented in regards to 3 days of fasting regenerates your immune system? Yeah,
so the research in that is pretty cool. My issue with it is that, without getting into kind of the defining stuff, I don't actually know what resetting your immune system means from a practical standpoint.
Yeah.
Right. Like my immune system works pretty good. I don't know if I need to hard reboot it. So it's really cool research. I just don't understand the practicality of it unless you have a broken immune system. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So very cool research. But again, I find that a lot of times we are very blinded is the opposite of what I'm trying to say. Almost like sun blinded, whatever it is. But there's so much research and there's so many opinions. You can get really caught up in the study of nutrition instead of the actual practice of nutrition. A lot of times, we actually let science, or more specifically, the reporting of science, cause us to ignore logic. Yeah. Right? So we will truly ignore logic because this one study said something, right? This one study you can go a week of breathing air and actually gain fat. And we're like, well, study said so. Right? Instead of being like, logically, there's probably something lost in translation here. So I like to kind of, I'm a big fan of letting research guide our thoughts and sort of more of a crowd think approach. Yeah. I'm not as big of a fan as reviewing thousands and thousands of research papers to find out what you specifically should do. Because oftentimes we forget that in any given trial in research study, the subjects matter. Of course. If the subjects were postmenopausal women, the data results may not apply to Brad Pilon, right? Exactly. If the study was like, if you get research done we're up in Canada here, so MAC, right? Guelph, any place that's sort of a sports powerhouse, right? Like I don't want to know how many studies in Guelph and MAC were done on rugby players, but I'm guessing it's a lot, right? And those are two schools, at least back in my day, that we're really like, sort of rugby, football, hockey intensive schools, right? And if you're a student who went into kinesiology or nutrition, chances are you're an active young person, right? So the results that come from that active young person may not apply to that active young person's sedentary father who's got type 2 diabetes.
Of course.
So you got to be very careful with it, and then just
we always
research for interest, but stay also to what's practical and what's logical for you.
exactly. Have you? I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the BMJ put that fake study in regards to the RCT and the parachutes.
Yeah.
Remember that one? Yeah.
Oh, there is an unbelievable amount of fake studies just being snuck in now, and some are just hilarious. They're awesome. Yeah.
So we'll take 2 more questions, and then we can sign off. You okay for time?
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm actually, truthfully, probably going to go get some donuts after
awesome.
this.
Awesome.
We talked about it,
so can Brad explain the importance of weight training? Because this one person commented on fasting without weight training will lead to a skinny, fat physique. So I guess he or she wants to know where you fit weight training in there. And I mean, my thought process would be in terms of stimulation of hormones and whatnot for muscle mass and for fat loss. Yeah. But maybe
I think for the sedentary person,
yeah,
weight training or any because we get this caught up, any form of resistance training is a paramount of importance. If you're in a calorie deficit, if you're eating less than you need to maintain your body weight, you do your body, not to create one of those like divisions between you and your body, which is weird, but anyway, your body has to decide where we're going to make up that deficit, right? So if you're not using your muscle mass at all, if it's just surplus, if it's just sitting around there doing nothing, why not use that, right? But if you're in a deficit, you're creating a deficit, but you've told your body this muscly stuff, like I need to keep that. Like look what yesterday I rock climbed for like an hour, and you know what that was like. This stuff is needed.
Intense. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost, if you think of it like a conversation with your body, which again is really, I'm getting kind of out there. You're telling your body what it is you need, right? And if you need that muscle mass, then it's going to maintain that muscle mass. And maintaining muscle mass for a variety of reasons, right? From proper aging to self-esteem and body image, whether right or wrong, muscle mass is important for that, right? And so, the idea of being a skinny fat is well, mostly kind of cosmetic aesthetic. That's not to negate its actual importance, right? We live in a world where the way your body looks, for better or worse, is important. And so the weight training or any form of resistance training that tells your body, I want this muscle, is an important way to make sure you're not losing excessive or unneeded amounts of muscle while you fast, right? Your muscle is dynamic, right? So you're always losing some out of I'm tapping my forearm like you can see it. You're losing muscle out of this shoulder, right? But then those proteins are broken down. Some of them might appear in this shoulder. It's dynamic. Yeah. So don't worry about the idea that you're breaking down some protein when you're fasting, because you're always doing that. Yeah. But what you don't want to do is constantly be breaking it down and not replacing it. And so resistance training, any form of physical activity that is a challenge to your muscles, ensures that that's not happening to a large degree.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Somebody asked, producing ketones in a 24-hour fast?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a very giant ketogenic diet trend right now. So it's important to point out that you can lose body fat without going into ketosis, right? The ketones are literally what happens when your body can't keep up with the fat oxidation equation. Now, ketones also are obviously a way to get rid of the carbons from fat. There's just another way to lose fat, right? But yeah, depending on the size of your last meal, I mean, you can literally start to see ketones increasing in your blood in as little as 8 hours after a meal, right? Depending on the size of the meal, it might take 16, but you start to see a small increase probably by about the 16-hour mark for most people doing average work in an average day with average meals before the fast.
I like how you use the word average and not normal.
Yeah, I wanted to throw in a couple more times just to balance it out.
So we got let's do one more question. We got, after 12 to 16 weeks of fasting, how do you move past a plateau? And the person suggests a cheat day or maintenance eating. What would you suggest?
No, the plateau is straight. You learn homeostasis, right? You learn to sort of be the same. Human bodies don't generally want wild, massive fluxes. It's why, 3 weeks of working out with weights doesn't turn you into the Hulk. And if, a 24 hours of not eating doesn't turn you into, Steve Rogers, Captain America, right? It wants to kind of keep around the same. So, but a lot of it, we look at metabolism and hormones, and a lot of it is learning. So you learn and adapt based on how active you are during a day. Right. So, and I'm not talking like you go for a run. I'm talking about you may not be the weirdo moving your hands around, touching your hair all the time while you're doing an interview. You may keep them down. The knee shake. I don't know if you can. There, I'll make my figure eight. That kind of thing. That changes. Then also you do learn to kind of eat a bit more when you're not fasting, right? You start to learn what you can get away with, and then you test that. You're always walking that fine line of trying to see what you can get away with and what you can't. So any sort of plateau is generally based on behavioral things more than it is hormonal or metabolic, right? The idea that your metabolism shifts to any large degree was sort of mistaken research we've now sort of rethought. So it's generally not because you've dropped down to burning 2 calories a day, and more likely your behaviors have changed as you've learned to behaviorally adapt to the fasting, if that makes sense.
You get some sort of adaptation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Kind of like, it's not that we're lazy, we just kind of like a status quo, and it will learn to kind of move back into that comfort zone no matter what we're doing.
Yes, and our body's super smart and realizes, right, energy expenditure is costly. So, yeah.
So it's just, so you really have to pay attention to your habits. We're going right back to paying attention to why you eat while you're fasting. You learn to pay attention to why you get cues to eat. The same thing happens after a while of fasting. You start paying attention to, what am I doing differently now that I've been fasting for a while? Like, am I sort of sneaking some extra food in? And if so, was I doing that in the beginning when I was losing weight, right? Or am I less active now? Have I changed anything in my day-to-day life? Has much less to do with the need for a refeed and much more to do with just a bit more mindful self-reflection of what has changed.
And tweaking your habits.
Exactly. Yeah. Habits. It's,
Cool. Is there anything else you want to add? I mean, this has been awesome.
No, trying to, the split screen makes it really different for me. I'm like watching as people are joining and seeing what kind of questions they have. Yeah. But just as I see a question, I'm halfway done reading it, it disappears. So I don't know if I've missed anything.
Oh, if you touch, you can scroll down. Like,
shut the door. Really? I'm always afraid to touch something and ruin it.
The only one we didn't get to, if we'd like to get some moment there, is Hall 5508 again asked.
Ketones and energy for the brain. Honestly, outside my wheelhouse, I know that we view energy, again, it's semantics of the English language, right? But energy as in calories versus energy as in feeling of vitality. And we kind of get them used interchangeably. From my understanding of like lay literature / we're talking like blog and article level education, is that there does seem to be, I'm going to use really weird terms, like a brain boosting effect from ketones. Right. I know that from just studying fasting, there is evidence of a higher level of concentration and creative work while fasting. Memory recall as well. I have no idea if that has to do with the ketones or what that's about. So I'd just be guessing if I answered your question.
Yeah. Neat. So where can people find your book if they want your book?
All right. So like most books, you can go to Amazon.com and look up Eat, Stop, Eat. And it'll be the one that's actually titled Eat, Stop, Eat. All the other derivatives by different authors are not me, but there seems to be a lot. Eating and stop, eat, or eat, stop, and eat. Like a lot of those kind of things. Yeah. Mine, eat, stop, eat. Or eatstopeat.com also has the book. My blog, bradpilon.com. Again, we'll probably have links to the book. And then my super narcissistic tendencies, you can literally look up Brad Pilon on any major platform. Yep. Whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or bradpilon.com, and you're going to find me.
Okay, neat. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add today?
No, it was fun. It was good talk, man.
Good. I'm glad we got a lot of questions. That was fabulous.
Absolutely. Yeah, the questions make it fun, right?
Yeah.
And now I know I can scroll through them, so I'm going to spend the rest of my time playing with that.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, no worries, man. I'm glad we got it to figure out. Right? We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but
Instagram likes us more than Facebook.
Instagram does like us more. Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I'll talk to you soon, Brad. Thanks again.
All All right, man. You take care.
We'll see everybody soon. Bye for now. Thanks, guys.
And I'm going to figure out how to log off without making it awkward. Let's see.
I'm going to hit end, okay?
Yeah, you got it. See you, bud.
See you, bud. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.